United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I have the following announcements regarding closed sessions of last week. First of all, the closed session was held pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, a conference with labor negotiator, Director of Human Resources and Risk Management. This is regarding the Service Employees International Union, Local 1021, also known as SEIU, and DSA, resulting in no action taken. A closed session was held pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, one case. This was Oakdale Irrigation District and all against County of Calaveras. This is a Superior Court case number 35081, resulting in no action taken. A closed session was held pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9C, conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation, the initiation of litigation, one case, and that was also resulted in no action taken. Okay, let's turn our attention to the consent agenda. It's pretty light this morning. As you know, the consent agenda is supposed to be routine and non-controversial. Anyone can pull an item off either from the citizenry or from the board. So at this time, I'd like to see if there's any request for removal. If not, the chair requests a motion for approval.
Item 3, please.
Okay, item 3 will be pulled.
And I'll move the balance.
Okay, we have a motion on the balance of the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously.
We don't need a second.
We don't need a second.
Gary would like to make a...
Gary,
I will second that.
Next post fact.
Gary's going to retroactively second that motion. Sorry, Supervisor Toppin. Now, do we have some comments on item number 3?
This is a one-year extension of our agreement with Cy Ash, who serves as the county's conflicts public defender. I actually thought Cy would be here. I just wanted to acknowledge that in the process of preparing this board item, I checked with the district attorney's office and with the court. The court in particular reported that Cy has done excellent work in his capacity as a public defender. Cy is a senior lawyer. He takes on very significant criminal cases and does a great job for the county. I was hoping that he would be here, but for those who are watching, we have a real talented conflicts public defender, and I would certainly urge the board to approve the 1 year. Oh, and I should point out that Cy asked for this extension and acknowledged the county's financial situation, so did not ask for any sort of an increase in the contract. And with that, I would recommend that the board agree to extend his contract.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion in 2 seconds. We'll go with Supervisor Toffanelli to approve this contract for a standby or a conflict public defender services. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, we should recess here momentarily. We'll recommence at 9:10. So, Mr. Lawton, we are live, I guess. Okay. All right. Returning to the agenda, we have our public comments this morning. A reminder that we're limited to 5 minutes per person or 15 minutes per topic.
Good morning. My name is Frank Ginger, and one of the questions I wanted to ask this panel was, we got people, county employees, stealing copper, brass, and aluminum, and nobody's doing nothing about it. And I went to Public Works and told them, and the gentleman who told me talked to them, and they did nothing about it. Is it okay to steal from the county now? I mean, I just want to know, first it was the rocks for Sheep Ranch. The county took $5,000 worth of rock from the guy. I mean, if we're going to steal, okay, but you know what? I find it a little appalling that these guys are getting away with it, and I go down there and tell them about it, and the man's still working. It's okay to take brass, copper, and aluminum? Well, then I'm going to start doing it too. From the dump. But the crime is wrong. With that money alone, that these two gentlemen are taking it, you could bring back some employees. $3,000 a month is nothing to joke about, and they've been doing it for a couple of years. So I guess it's okay, you allow them, even though you guys have been told, you guys do nothing about it, it's okay? I just wanted to know why. So that's all I got to know, is so it's okay to steal from the county. Is that right?
Mr. Ginger, this is the first that I've heard of it when you mentioned before, but...
Last month, I brought it up on public comment.
Okay, well, that must have been on the meeting that where I was gone, but I just want to ask you a question. It's not normal to
I know, I understand that.
Interaction here. However, I'm only familiar with the transfer station in Copperopolis. I take my trash there, garbage, routinely. At that location, they have a bin that is for metal only.
Yes.
And people come and they throw that stuff in. I mean, I've seen people filling it up. I've never seen anybody dragging anything out of it. Nobody.
Well, that's why they're making... The guy in West Point has been... My buddy up there told me he showed him a check, $1,600. That's not bad. Plus, he's getting a wage. Hey, I want to... You know, you need to hire me and let me do code enforcement for 2 months. Okay? Have a good day.
Thank you very much, Frank. Uh-oh.
Just coupled on top of that, you mentioned the public works, that they are double dipping. They're taking firewood. And I talked about the firewood before. That's like, maybe they should give up their check and they can keep the firewood, and then we could save that much money. Or they need to leave the firewood on the side of the road and not take it to their own homes so they can warm themselves. Because I'm still cold in the winter. I don't have that row of firewood that I'm still expecting them to drop off at my house. Because they did take, I would say, 6 cords of firewood off of Double Springs last year. It's the same situation that Mr. Ginger's talking about. You see something and it's so easy to do, but I was watching, and apparently somebody up in West Point's watching too.
That's a lot of money.
It's double dipping. It's called double dipping.
Thank you, Bonnie. Anyone else wishing to address the board this morning? Oops, Tim, you got...
That's why I sit in the front. Good morning. I'm Lisa Mayo, the director of the Calaveras Visitors Bureau, and I'm here to report on the State Fair. Hopefully by now you've heard of our outcomes. I've been trying to shout it from the mountaintops. So our booth at the State Fair did win a gold ribbon this year, right here, and I brought it so you could see for yourself, which was a great honor. And in addition to that, we won a special award, which is the Best Experience Award, which means that when fairgoers go to our booth, they really can experience Calaveras County. And I think that has a lot to do with the pioneer cabinetry that is very predominant in the booth. I'd also like to thank Supervisors Toffanelli and Thomas for coming in and being a part of the award ceremony last Friday. It was a very fun experience. I know you guys enjoyed seeing that and seeing us get this big win. So I just want to thank the board for your support always, and I hope that you all get an opportunity to go up to the fair. It lasts through September 7th, and see our booth up close and personal. So thank you.
There may be other questions. You have anybody? I just have a question. You mentioned the gold certificate or the gold award. Can you give us an explanation about how that is determined and by whom?
Well, actually, there's a set of judges. There's about 8 judges. And one of the things that I had to do, which was nerve-wracking for me, but I did it with my little niece, Chloe, was we had to do a 90-second presentation for the judges and take them through our booth. And to talk about Calaveras County in 90 seconds is a huge challenge. The theme this year was Weird, Wild, and Wacky, so we did focus on some of the weird things, like some people may not think so, but our name Calaveras, meaning skull, was something that we started off with. We talked about the Rubber Chicken National Forest at Twisted Oak Winery, but we also didn't want to get away from the real wild things that we have here in Calaveras County, so we touched on the wildlife, the rivers, the adventures like zip lining and caving and the water sports, these types of things. So it was based on the presentation, it was based on creativity, it was based on marketability, which of course is huge because that's why we're there, is to market Calaveras County. So those were a lot of the criteria for the judging. So, and they had 9,500 additional people attend the first weekend of the fair this year than they did over last year, which is a really good sign too. So I'm hoping that a lot of people. And there's still an award out there waiting to be grabbed, and it's the People's Choice. So again, if you get out to the fair, go vote for Calaveras. Not that we're being greedy, but it's just kind of fun.
Okay, let's see. There was another thing I wanted to ask. Talk about the experience, that award you got for the experience. Standing back and watching people going through and interacting with the display, I thought that everybody's attention, or not everybody, but a lot of the young folks were getting pictures taken with the mountain lion and right in back of them. That was really quite.
It was really neat and timely this year that we used Calaveras Big Tree State Park as a focus because of the state parks being in some danger. But we worked with 2 of the rangers up there, Jeff Davis and Gary Olson, up at Big Trees, and we were just floored by the amount of items that they let us take to the fair, including that mountain lion, who normally sits in the visitor center up at Calaveras Big Tree State Park. So we have the great horned owl, a flying squirrel, all kinds of great little things from up there at Big Tree. So if you go there, you'll recognize a lot of the items in the booth.
Okay, there was another county that with some fanfare got a gold award, and that was Solano County. And I heard people whispering about that their line item budget in their general fund for that state fair booth is what?
I've heard up to $100,000. I've also heard around $45,000. So I don't know. It's somewhere in between those two, which is a huge expense. But
okay, what was our line item budget for that?
For the Visitors Bureau, we allowed $10,000.
Okay.
So yeah, but we did it. We made it a priority. It's a big deal for our county. Everybody should be proud.
Well, I certainly am and was for the awards. It was really pretty remarkable, the standing ovation and everything. So congratulations to you and to the people that helped. I really appreciate your efforts.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry. Okay.
Lisa, how many counties participated this year?
There is, I think, 38. So that was really great that I'm particularly proud of this one. So, thank you.
A celebrity among us.
Thanks, Lisa. Great job.
Mr. McSorley, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Tim McSorley, Calaveras Council of Governments. Just want to give you a brief update on a couple of things going on. The shoe fly, what they call the shoe fly portion of the new highway will be open in a couple of weeks. That's the connection between the new highway and the old highway going into Angels Camp. So hopefully all those detour issues and questions will be resolved at that point. Once again, Tykert has stepped up to the plate, and they're about two weeks ahead of schedule on that. So we're looking forward to that opening, and then we enter into what's called the closeout phase of the project, and that's all the administrative stuff that Caltrans does to final things out. We have our Technical Advisory Committee meeting this Wednesday. This Thursday evening, we will be convening a meeting in Valley Spring, the continuation of the Valley Springs Community Plan process that we've been working on for the past few months. And then finally, our wagon trail project is moving along. We did get access to one of the major property owners out there to conduct our field reviews for biological and cultural resources. We've also begun working with a software program called Quantum, which you input various data, including cultural and biological and topographical information, and it starts giving some preliminary corridors for the alignment. So we're moving ahead on that project as well. And I'd be more than happy to answer your questions if you have any.
Any questions of Tim? Tim, I, as you know, drive that route almost daily, and I see on both sides of Highway 4 what appears to me to be limit staking that would show a kind of an alternate alignment. Is that, am I looking at that correctly? I mean, there's stakes on.
There have been no stakes at this point.
Pool station.
Oh, yeah. You're talking about the pool station project, and that's separate from the wagon trail. Okay. That's the immediate safety project that Caltrans is working on at this point in time.
Okay. So they aren't linked.
We will try to link them because we hate to see any money go towards that intersection work not be utilized in the ultimate alignment, but that has yet to be determined.
Okay. Has anybody made any suggestions about when the pool station safety work might be commencing?
I believe construction will be starting next spring. My latest information.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McSorley.
One question, Tim. I do have a question. You mentioned the Valley Springs Community Plan. Can you, since we're going to be on TV, can you mention the time and the place, the location?
6 to 8:30 p.m. Valley Springs Elementary, multi-purpose room.
Did that get on tape?
No. Why don't you echo
6
that?
to 8:30 at Valley Springs Elementary School.
Yes.
In Valley Springs.
In Valley Springs.
Wednesday night.
Thursday
night, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Martin.
Good morning. My name's Les Martin. I really didn't come up here to address the board today. I was going to watch, but hearing that gentleman, what was his name, Ginger, talking about purloining of non-ferrous scrap and one thing or another, he may be onto something. I spent a little bit over 17 years with Transamerica de Laval in Oakland, California, in materials management, and 19 years with East Bay Mud as a store supervisor, and I was tasked with handling all this scrap. I implemented procedures and policies and kept the bookkeeping on it. And there's been some real nasty stuff going on with the stealing of scrap water meters. In fact, some people are in prison for it. The City of Sacramento did not have policies in place. The City of Sonoma, City of San Francisco did not have it, or County of Sonoma, I take it back. But East Bay did, and I wrote them. And I'd be more than happy to look over anything that you have in policies and procedures or help you with anything. So a person like this can't come up and make statements that, may be true and may not be true. If they're true, they should be addressed. So I'll volunteer, free of charge. How's that sound?
Thank you, Les. Anyone else wishing to address the board this morning? Mr. Grewal, how are you?
Good morning, members of the board. I have about 4 problems I'll be discussing with you. Now, first of all is bio plant being proposed in District 3. It's not District 2. It's not a problem as far as I am concerned. But you might be hearing from some people who are at this point thinking that the emissions from the plant are going to damage vegetation or the forest in the area. The emissions from such a biomass plant are almost negligible if the plant is built, constructed, and operated in compliance with the district regulations. So congratulations, Mr. Walensky. I think we'll be able to do it, and I'll be there to help, whether I'm retired or as a volunteer, like the gentleman stated. The second one is the petition in District 3, Forest Meadows. People, the homeowners association at this point contacted me a couple of days back. They're preparing a petition coming to the board and the district that they would like to make Forest Meadows area as a no-burn area. I think Supervisor Callaway and myself worked on a similar issue before. In this case, they think they have 90% of the votes to go before their board, and then coming to this board, they would like to be absolutely no burning in that area. And their concern is that if some fire escapes, whether it's from a single family residence or any uncontrolled burn, it could become a real big issue like the big fires we have seen in that area. So that petition is on the way, and I don't know how and when they will be submitting it. The third problem I would like to discuss is excessive dust on Stallion Way. And they are going to approach Supervisor Tryon, and they think they would like to have that road, including the side road, Appaloosa, to be paved. With this board's blessings, about 8 or 9 years back, we were able to solve the problem in Diamond 20, where the homeowners, the developer, and as well as the landowner, they all contributed monies, and most of the Diamond 20 roads are paved. Other than that, the asbestos problem in District 5, the state is getting concerned about it because El Dorado County had a similar problem where at one point all the development was shut down near the area where the serpentine rock was found. I've been handling on case-by-case basis, but at the same time, in this case, I think I'll be able to report to the state that our problem is not as big as El Dorado. But I'm happy to report that most of the Carl Moyer funds we have received, they have already been obligated. There are 6 projects from the county of Calaveras. They have been approved. I think they will be getting approximately $120,000 for these projects. There's another project. It's from the private people, Mr. Herzig. He has 2 trucks. I think one of those trucks will be rebuilt under the Carl Moyer Fund program. So I wanted to announce that for the general citizenry, because there will be no monies available for the year, this year, but in future year we'll get another $200,000 for the next 6 years from the state under Carl Moyer program. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? I do have one. Lockmere was talking about a bio plant in D2. I've heard about the one in Ione, but are you building a bio?
Yeah, actually, there are proposals for small cogen plants related to the Fuel to School program, but that's separate from the one going in that should be online in May at Buena Vista, and a lot of people in District 2 will be working to supply it with chips from the forest stewardship and watershed restoration projects up there. So there is a District 2 connection to it, but not by having the plant in the district. It does, by the way, have reburning, which will make the emissions almost negligible.
That's true. The technology does exist, and we would be able to employ that. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to address the board this morning? Mr. Sarasi, I see you back there. You're not on our agenda this morning. Do you have any report to give us, or?
Good morning, Board. I just wanted to report that I did get my engineered stamp for the wall, and just wanted to show my face so I wouldn't be forgotten. So I just already spoke with Jeff White, and I submitted him the engineered stamp, but he said that I needed two, so I'm going to be giving that to him today. So just wanted to show my face.
Okay, should we get our bathing suits packed? And
I'm sorry?
Should we get our bathing suits and towels packed? And
please. Please do. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, one last offer. Seeing nobody rushing up, let's go on to agenda item number 5. Okay. This is a discussion of possible board action regarding the Williamson Act program. This is brought to us by the Environmental Management Agency, Department of Agriculture. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning. Mary Mutz, Agricultural Commissioner. This morning I'd like to draw your attention to a recent edition of Ag Alert, the newspaper from the Farm Bureau, August 19th, 2009. And I'd like to draw your attention to this headline right here.
Mary, pardon me for one moment. It looks like you've got quite a cheering section here. Let's wait till they get inside. Please begin again.
I'd like to draw your attention to a recent edition of Ag Alert, August 19th, 2009, and a headline article. Siskiyou becomes first county to act on land program. And I'd like to read to you the first sentence. In a move designed to send a strong message of support to farmers and ranchers, the Siskiyou County, now let's change that to Calaveras County, Board of Supervisors voted unanimously last week, and let's change it to today, to pick up the shortfall in Williamson Act funding that was created when state support for the program was vetoed out of the 2009-10 budget. Today I'm in front of you to have discussion on how to proceed with the Williamson Act here in Calaveras County. I do believe you all know that the subventions at the state level have been reduced to $1,000. Now, if you divide that among the 50 or so counties involved in Williamson Act, that is less than $20 per county. So in reality, the subventions have been eliminated. However, in Calaveras County a few years ago, we had an audit by the Department of Conservation. And the Department of Conservation is the state agency that oversees the Williamson Act program. And they found that we had received overpayments of subventions. And so the Department of Conservation said, Calaveras County, you've got to pay the money back. And the way they decided for us to pay the money back is they are withholding subventions to Calaveras County. They have withheld subventions since 2007, 2008. So we have not received any of the state money since 2007, 2008. The county has absorbed the cost of this program since that time. And I do believe our subventions will be paid off in about 2 more years, 2 more fiscal years. Now, if you look around the room, my introduction was slightly interrupted by all the people in the audience that may wish to speak to you to show their support for the Williamson Act program. They support this program. There is total support from industry to keep the program as it currently exists in the county. And that is the recommendation from staff and from industry, to maintain this program, to honor the existing contracts, to allow new land to come into contract, and to continue preserving our agricultural lands. Eliminating the program by doing a mass non-renewal on all the contracts that we have would be a dreadful, short-sighted mistake. You would have to think of the message we'd be sending out. We'd be sending out a message that all these individuals in the room that have contracts that they can do something else with their land. We'd be sending out a message that we don't support agriculture and we don't appreciate the agricultural vistas and our rural heritage. We'd be sending out a message that we encourage urbanization, and I don't think that's the message that we want to send out. So let's not forget, please, the intent of the legislation that created the California Land Conservation Act of 1965. The intent of that legislation was to preserve the limited supply of agricultural land. The intent of that legislation was the discouragement of premature and unnecessary conversion of ag land. And how about a history of the California Land Conservation Act in Calaveras County? In August of 1967, there was an ordinance that amended the zoning code, and it added the AE zone, agricultural exclusive. And in that zoning AE zone, that is where agricultural preserves were established, and that is where individuals entered into contracts. That was August 1967. 3 months later, October 67, a fee was established to enter into that zone. January 1968, again 3 months later, the Agricultural Screening Committee went before the Board of Supervisors at one of their meetings, and the Screening Committee told the board that they needed policy and guidelines to implement this program. And according to the minutes on that day, I'm sure the board politely told them, well, go back and implement those minutes, find them, create the guidelines. And in 1968, things seemed to work rather quickly because 3 months later, in March, Resolution 68-47 was passed, and that declared policy, and it established rules for the administration of agricultural preserves, and it implemented the California Land Conservation Act of 1965 in this county. And if you look at that resolution back in 1968, the words, the verbiage in that resolution are still included in our current rules and regulations. So that was March 1968 when Calaveras County implemented the program. It wasn't until 1971, 3 years later, that the subventions came into effect. So back in 1968, Calaveras County wholeheartedly supported this program without any ideas of subventions. We thought it was a strong enough program, an important enough program to preserve the ag lands and go into the Williamson Act. And I think today we need to go back to our roots and realize that we need to support this program regardless of subventions and keep it in keep our ag preservation program. So why should we keep the program in the county? Because, as I said earlier, it would be short-sighted to non-renew all the contracts. This is the strongest ag preservation program in the state as well as in the county. And who knows, the subventions, maybe they'll be reinstated. CSAC recently had a conference call, and perhaps Marita would like to update you on it if she cares to.
No, it's okay, Mary.
During the conference call, what I got out of that conference call is that CSAC supports those subventions being reinstated. The legislature also supported and wanted to maintain the subventions, but it was the governor who cut it out. Our subventions bring in about $130,000. But as I said earlier, we haven't received those subventions since 2007, 2008. We have not included that funding in our 2008-9 budget, nor have we included it in the 9-10 budget. So we do not need to address our budget to handle this elimination of subventions because these subventions are not in our current budget. And should we change this program? I hope not. I hope we keep it as it currently exists. I spoke very briefly with the assessor, and I understand that letting in new applications and unrestricted land is not a significant effect on the general fund. But the assessor may want to address that. If you have questions regarding the subventions, the taxes, the effect on the general fund, please do address the assessor. Leslie, our assessor, is in the room, as well as one of her staff members, Randy Gomes. So the choice is yours. We can be on the front page maybe next week of Ag Alert, where it says Calaveras County becomes second county to act on land program. We can show the county, the state, the world that we certainly do support agriculture and that this is an agricultural county. We can show them that we do support the ag industry and we value our ag lands. Or we can go into a detailed discussion right now on what we believe is the best way for Calaveras County to go forward. So, Mr. Thomas, with that, I'll answer any questions, or we can direct the questions to whoever they need to be directed.
Anyone have any questions of Mary? Guess not. I'd like to open this up for discussion, so anybody who wishes to come forward and express your opinions, please do.
Good morning. My name is Muriel Zeller. I'm here today representing the Calaveras Planning Coalition. The coalition strongly supports staff's recommendation to maintain the Williamson Act program as it currently exists. As staff points out, without the Williamson Act program, some landowners would not be capable of keeping large acreage available for agriculture. Aside from the obvious benefits of food and fiber, agricultural land, particularly rangeland within Calaveras County, provides the community with scenic open space, wildlife habitat, watershed protection, historical perspective, and a sense of place. Please maintain this important program. Thank you.
Thank you, Muriel.
My name is Gerald Dunn. We live up on Swiss Ranch Road out of Mountain Ranch. Basically the same thought that was just presented, but this comes from an article in the Western Livestock Journal about a week ago. Just to quote it first, it says, "What is imperative for politicians to remember," and this is on the state level, politicians to remember, is that the Williamson Act does not just benefit farmers and ranchers, it benefits the public by maintaining open space and wildlife. So basically the same thought. Our own property at the 3,000-foot elevation level is, you might consider subprime. We run cattle on it, but it's not prime agricultural land. But it is considered prime winter range for the railroad flat deer herd. That isn't provided by BLM property or national forest property. So it's private property, but it's the tremendous benefit to the wildlife. So that's the equivalency that I see. It's not just agriculture. We're talking about wildlife habitat and, of course, open space as well.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Is there anyone who thinks that we should eliminate the Williamson Act? Thank you very much. With that, I'd like to bring this back to the board for discussion. Anyone have any particular comments?
I have some questions, I believe. Maybe part of it might be for the CAO, part of it might be for the assessor. But we did have an overpayment, and we are not receiving subvention funds. If I see the figures correctly, we still owe money to the state. Now, considering the state is going to take it out of subvention, we do not have subvention. Are we going to negotiate with the state on the repayment, or are we going to have to take it out of general fund? And where does this lie, and who's going to do the negotiating for us? Because I don't think we should be taking it out of subvention, general fund. I think it should be taken from subvention that we're not receiving. So,
Mr. Chair, honorable members of the board, Leslie Davis, acting assessor. We didn't negotiate on how they were going to take the money in the first place. Supervisor Tryon might remember attending a meeting where we were presented the results of the audit and told that the repayment would come out of our subvention dollars. So at no time did we enter into any agreement to pay any money back. They have simply been withholding subvention dollars. Short of please don't put this in the press. I just think we stay quiet and see what happens. If they're not giving us subvention money, they don't have anything to withhold.
Well, that's my position also, and I would like to think that's the position of the board.
It's amazing that you and I are actually on the same page.
But I don't know if Bob's heard anything at all regarding that repayment.
We haven't gotten any direction from the state on how they would handle it in the event the Williamson Act program was terminated. We had the same concerns last year when this proposal was on the table at the state level, and we never got a complete or satisfactory answer. From an equity point of view, I'd have to say the state's philosophy must be, we gave you the money when you didn't deserve it, according to our auditors, and we would like it back very much. The taking it back through subvention, I think, is on the state's part, is a matter of convenience for them and for us. But if they close the Williamson funding down for the Williamson Act program, it's because they need the money. And if they'll take $1.5 million in property taxes and come after our gas taxes, I'm sure they're going to have their hand out for the remaining hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I don't think they're going to forget we're here. And I would expect the first move by the state would be to seek general fund repayment in the absence of the subventions.
Of which we have not budgeted for.
That is correct.
Well, I think we need to fight that in any way we can. The Williamson Act is not being canceled. It's the only thing being canceled are the subvention funds.
That's correct.
So of the 43 counties that have Williamson Acts, they're really, I think Mary and I am listening on the conference call last week, and there is no particular pattern on how counties are going to handle this. We are looking to try and come up with a shopping list of what different counties are doing. One of the questions Mary had mentioned was that the assessor's office said let me back step one, but don't go away because it's for you. The recommendation that I heard Mary say was to allow new land to come into contract. Okay, these are general fund dollars. So, the assessor said there's not a significant impact to the general fund, but we have a contract pending out there that's 22 plus or minus 100 acres that want to come into the Williamson Act at $1 an acre non-prime. That's $2,200 less to the general fund. So I'm interested in what does that mean it's not a significant impact, because we have $130,000 that the taxpayers of Calaveras will supplement the general fund for subvention funds that we are not receiving. So, the question really is, I think we should continue to allow those contracts in existence to stay in existence, no change, because ag lands are revenue producing versus marketplace producing, like, for example, housing. But then to start adding more, that does have an impact on the general fund. So I'm not really clear what the conversation was about, Leslie.
Well, Supervisor Callaway, there are impacts and then there are impacts. And as I read Mary's staff report, and I apologize, I only read it this morning, but as I read Mary's staff report, she's discussing some impacts that are slightly different from the one you just mentioned. As I was listening to you, Supervisor Callaway, you were talking about the non-prime $1 per acre subvention that we're not getting this year anyway, and $2,200 out of $130,000 is a pretty small amount. Equally small is the difference in the overall assessment role to put all of these properties off of Williamson Act. Right now, if we were to non-renew, cancel, and put everything off of Williamson Act, we would add $90 million to the assessment roll, which is only 1.3%. It is a minuscule amount, and I just don't understand why we're trying to make it a lot bigger than it really is. The net return to the general fund would be $178,000, not the $135,000 in Mary's staff report. And the reality is, it's really not costing that much time and energy on these. The 2,200 acres would reflect 2,200 acres out of 139,000 acres that are currently in Williamson Act. So you're talking about pretty small potatoes when you talk about adding that amount in, and not a large impact on our office. Now, I've looked at the cost of Williamson Act internally, and we range from a low of $15,000 a year to a high of maybe $38,000 a year, depending on how much activity is going on in Williamson Act. I'm reminded of George Carlin's monologue on stuff, and the reality is if you take that stuff away, something's going to fill that void. It's not like we're going to save that money in terms of staff time or any energy. So I would just suggest to you that this additional 2,200 acres isn't going to be that big a deal to our department. It's unlikely to be a major change to the county.
I wasn't looking at that 22, and the next 200. I mean, it's really the position that the board wants to take on do we add new lands in when we're not getting contracts, no matter what the size of the acreage is. That's one issue. The other issue is those lands that are already in the Williamson Act. Does the board want to take any action on that, or just allow those to exist and realize, though, under the assumption that we will, because the Williamson Act, the subvention funds keeps raising its head every few years, and whether we get it or we don't get it. So I mean, I think we need to make the policy decision on keeping lands in the Williamson Act sans subvention funds.
I think that you're correct. This is a public policy decision that's appropriately made by the board. Over the course of the 45 years that Williamson Act has existed, I think this governor has gone after it more than prior governors, although there have been a few along the way who thought they'd attack the Williamson Act. Williamson Act continues to survive. These elements of the law have been in place for a number of years. There was always the risk that the subvention might go away. And the fact is the county does subsidize some of this. Always has.
Okay.
Mr. Lawton, did you have a comment?
I don't have a comment. I do have just a couple of quick clarifying questions for the acting assessor, if I might. Leslie, so it's $1. We receive $1 per acre in subvention funds from the state for Williamson, or depending upon the classification of
prime or non-prime. It's not subprime. These aren't loans.
That's a bad word. So let's assume it's $1 for $1 an acre for the prime. And in exchange, there's a property tax abatement, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What's the cost to the county? In effect, what are we conceding in property tax revenue in exchange for the $1 subvention that we receive? Do you have either on a per acre?
I did a calculation based on last year's county portion of the 1%. Based on last year at 19.71%, the net return to the general fund would be $178,000 or so if we did not have Williamson Act. The subvention was about $130 to $132. So the subsidy for the county's dollars is about $48,000.
Okay. Thank you. I just wanted to be clear about the numbers involved.
Supervisor Tryon, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'll give my comments. First off, let me say that my family does have some land in the Williamson Act, and I have a note from counsel that says, I asked him, do I have a conflict, and he says it's not a simple answer. I don't know. Do you want a recess, or can I give my comments?
Well, let me explain. In a very general sense, the test for conflict includes a financial interest, but it doesn't stop there. So I've assumed from your note. Thank you for disclosing our note here, but I hope not all these notes get disclosed. But I take it from your note that there probably is a potential financial benefit, but that's not the end of the story. The other part of the question is whether it has a general impact. The board members can act on legislation that has, even if there is some potential financial benefit to themselves, if that benefit is across the community generally. Everybody benefits to the same extent, or a significant segment of the community.
Okay. I think I fall into that.
I suspect, but would like to have a little more time to consider. I think that in this case, the ag community is a significant segment of that community, and so in that sense, there would probably not be a conflict. But before there's official action taken, I'd like to have some time to just review this.
Okay, let me just go ahead and give my comments then. I don't sort of view this as a subsidy general fund issue as much as I do just good land use policy issue. We're into the general plan update. I am not, I've spoken out strongly for many years now against rural sprawl, and we need to focus more on the residential development within the community centers, et cetera. If we were to say, well, let's abolish the Williamson Act, I mean, that's just going to put a much more pressure in creating additional rural sprawl, which in my opinion would cost us a hell of a lot more in addressing the consequences of rural sprawl than $48,000 a year. I mean, $48,000 a year is insignificant if we end up with a bad land use policy. And I think it would be a horrible land use policy to say that we're going to, for instance, just abolish the Williamson Act. And quite frankly, I think it's fair enough to say that the Williamson Act, in my opinion, by the general fund, if you want to look at it as a benefit or a government benefit or a government service cost, isn't being subsidized at all. What does come in on those lands, in my opinion, are certainly adequate to cover the government services that are required by those lands. Quite frankly, running cows or sheep or goats or the like doesn't, require a whole lot of government services. So, in my own view, I don't really view those properties is frankly being subsidized. You may get a call to the sheriff's department where somebody's either trespassing or stealing something or the like. But demand on government services are almost nil. At least, I look at our operating cattle ranch and I don't know quite what I get out of the government other than I have to go down to Mary and get some permits if I want to do some spraying or star thistle or something like that. But really, that's about the extent of the government services that are provided. So I don't think by saying you're separating or you're delaying development values by putting something in the Williamson Act is somehow a subsidy. I think it's just good land use policy, and if we want to stay focused on the new general plan and keep the focus where I think the focus belongs, then to say that we will not continue as we are currently doing and accepting applications and encouraging, not encouraging, but allowing property owners to put land in a Williamson Act is just good public policy and good land use policy. I'd end my comments with just stating that if you think, if this board or Marita thinks the Williamson Act is bad and geez,
Tom, I didn't
not
say
bad,
that.
excuse me, subsidized.
Thank you.
Is subsidized, then why in the hell did this board vote to put Mr. Dunn's property in a perpetual easement last week, which is the same argument. If we hadn't done it and we canceled his Williamson Act that's currently on the property, my God, the general fund wouldn't be subsidizing the easement. And I don't think perpetuity also, just for the record, for those that weren't here last week, I don't think that's good public policy either when it comes to land use policy. But how can we be here today saying we're thinking of not continuing the Williamson Act at the same time a week ago we put, I don't know how many acres it was, into a perpetual easement in perpetuity. So I think we should continue the policies the way they're currently being operated.
Supervisor Walensky.
I want to reissue my apologies to Mr. Dunn, who's a really good guy and did the right thing last week, and we did support him. I too must disclose that my property is under the Williamson Act.
Well, if we both step down as a conflict, they won't be able to act, and we'll just
yes, we can, Tom.
And I also wish to get the advice of counsel as to whether I can pass. Well, I believe he's doing some research as we speak on the topic. Nevertheless, I will offer a few broad comments on this. The state of California is a place where a lot of people wanted to come, and we managed to pave over some of the best ag land in the world, to our great detriment, ultimately. You take a look at the Central Valley and what's going on there, or, for instance, looking at even where the Silicon Valley is right now, or southern Alameda County. There were great orchards and lots of food produced as a result. The only policy that's made any difference in any offset to what would otherwise be, I believe, a complete suburbanization of almost the entire state has been the Williamson Act. And it's made a big difference in Calaveras County. In the state as a whole, more than half of the land and agricultural production is in the Williamson Act. And that does provide at least a slowing of the conversion of the best ag lands into what I would consider to be a lesser land use. The state has supported this for a long time, and the subventions meant that the counties did not have to carry the primary burden for the loss of tax. But when the state, as it has just done in a number of areas, we've talked about IHSS cuts, we've talked about Health and Human Services cuts, we've talked about the devastation of our road budget, the state managed to come at local government in a most savage way. And in my view, out of all the cuts, the threat to this undermines the fundamental ethic and values of this county as a rural place. There aren't many left in California, by the way, and it's important that we take what we treasure and defend it. So that means to me that we don't allow a mistake. I think this is a terrible policy mistake. It takes one of the best programs that California ever devised and undermines it. I think the governor's made a very short-sighted take on this. He's been trying for a long time, and I guess finally found the right conditions for it. But that doesn't mean that we in Calaveras have to simply accept that. We have to look at who we are, what we want to be, what kind of a place we have, and what kind of values we hold, and act on that locally. So for that reason, I am very much for the staff's recommendation. I don't think that it is in any way, shape, or form in the interests of Calaveras County to cut off applications to put ag land under the Williamson Act. And I think the pittance that we pay for this more than offsets what the Sierra Nevada Alliance study advised counties of the Sierra, which was for every rooftop in a subdivision context that does not include economic aspects to it, that is the industry, retail, or other revenue sources, it actually costs the county in the neighborhood, and if you have an average room fee, and by the way, we have one of the lowest, but for the counties of the Sierra, as an average, it was a cost of between $300 and $480, $478 as I recall, per year, per rooftop, more than we were receiving in revenues. That is, we are subsidizing other industries and other areas of this right now in the way we allocate services. As Tom rightly suggested, the ag community puts forth a great deal of benefit in many ways other than food and fiber, but doesn't take a whole lot. So if you're really doing the metrics of what would happen if you ended the Williamson Act or decided to take no new applications, the ultimate cost of this county would be far more than what we would be asked to pay ourselves out of our general fund. Even if it isn't a moral issue, even if it isn't an ethical issue, even if it isn't a food issue, it is something that we prosper by economically. So be you a fiscal conservative, an eater of food, or simply somebody who likes a great place to live and believes that some part of California ought to stay rural, we ought to do the right thing here.
Thank you. Supervisor Toffanelli, do you want to weigh in on this?
No, I haven't.
Well, I do. I have to respond to my colleague to the far right.
You've gone far right from the left?
You're talking county council now?
First of all, we were put into this position of discussing this because the subvention funds for the Williamson Act have been taken away. Okay, so that's why we're discussing this. This is a policy issue for this board and the 43 other counties that are having the same discussion, I'm sure, last week, this week, and next week on Tuesdays. Subsidize was not a word I used, Supervisor Troyan. I said is that we need to know where money comes from and what happens to it, and it would not be prudent not to say where the subvention monies come from. The subvention monies come from the state and they go to the general fund. So it's just because it might not sit popular, it was not, I never used the word subsidize, so I don't think that's appropriate that you used it either. This board has been very supportive of agriculture in this county. We did the zoning amendment and we did ag and forestry element. You even got my vote on that. So I think the board has proven that they're supportive of it, but it doesn't mean that the topic of where the money comes from and what the impact is to the county, be it $48,000 or $130,000, shouldn't be discussed. It should be. And I don't think we should sweep those things under the rug just because it's agriculture. Thank you.
All right, for my part.
It's 48 or 130.
It's actually 178. We're not getting subvention. We have it for...
No, we get 130 in
We don't.
subvention.
We haven't for the last 2 years.
No. For 07-08, we got 130. For 08-09, we got 0.
Correct. So for the last 2 years, we have not.
And
so
we're not going to get
It's
one.
178, not 48.
It's fine. Whatever. It used to be 190 before
All
we
right.
screwed up.
I think that it's fairly well established that as of in 71, the state started to backfill in the form of subventions. Prior to that, they did not, and we had a fairly active Williamson Act program in the state or in the county prior to getting the subventions. For me, it's sort of like this whole discussion is a little premature because we are in this kind of unique situation where we aren't getting any monies back anyway because of what we owe the state. And as far as the state coming after us to get the repayment, I'd like to remind Supervisor Callaway that we did, or we would have gotten our fair share of the $1,000 would have been about $20. So, I mean, we owe them, what, a couple $100,000? It should only take, 100 years to get it back to them, or at that rate?
A lot more than 100 years.
I think that there is a signal. There's a very strong signal that we all can take. The fact that the state legislature didn't abandon the Williamson Act program, that they are continuing the subvention payment, albeit minuscule. But I don't think that they had the courage to eliminate the subventions altogether because that would, of course, broadcast the fact that they want to get rid of the program forever and all times. I think, just on the specific item about whether we should refuse at this point to take in new contracts would be a de facto elimination of the program, because if we make that decision, or if we were to make that decision, nobody's suggesting that we are, but that was one of the alternatives. That, in my mind, would be an immediate announcement that we're going to take the next step and get rid of it, and I'm certainly not in favor of doing that. So I also want to declare that I don't have any lands in the Williamson Act. So.
I have one comment.
I have star thistle.
Well, you're very close.
Sorry, that doesn't qualify.
That makes you a sympathizer. Supervisor Topanelli, can you top that?
I'm looking out in the audience today, and I see a lot of ag people here, and a lot of the people here are actually cattle ranchers. Is that correct? Can I see a raise of hands of the people that have contracts that are actually cattle ranchers? And if we were to do away with the Williamson Act, I'm sure that would do you a tremendous amount of harm. You're struggling right now, especially in drought years that we've experienced. Last year we had pretty good rainfall, significantly. We're staggered where we had some good growth out there where you're not having to buy supplemental feed. But I think it would be devastating to the cattle industry in our county to do away with the Williamson Act.
Misconception. I've had more last year than I've had my whole life.
Last year? This spring.
Last year we've had more than we have ever had.
It's been easy in some parts of the
Oh,
That's all I had to say.
I guess we would need to bring this. I'm proposing some action. One, Steve and Tom need to find out if they can even vote on it after discussion with council. I thought I heard Steve say he wanted to talk to you some more.
I'd like to try to clarify what I said. That the point
Do you
that
have a note? We need a note.
well, the framework is that it's not an objection for a board member to vote on an item if there's a financial benefit that pertains to the community in general. The objection is a financial benefit to an individual board member or family member. If it benefits the community in general, or, as the statute says, a significant segment of the community. And I think that's the real issue here, is this seems on its face to be a substantial segment, but that's something that I think to be cautious, we should evaluate. But the point is that it probably benefits everybody equally who has Williamson Act property, and probably is not going to be a conflict. But it's worth taking some time to verify that.
Well, just as a point of clarification, if we do nothing, if we have no vote at all today, that endorses our willingness to continue the program. So why would that, in my mind, we don't need to do anything other than just
Rita
say...
says she wants to propose a motion. I guess we could do that and see if it gets a second.
Well, one of the items that's been suggested is not to take any new contracts. That's probably not a conflict under any view.
But the point that I'm making is that that was one of the alternatives to not make any new contracts. However, I don't see from the sentiments expressed thus far, I haven't seen a willingness to go there. So my question to you is, aren't we making a maybe not a loud enough statement, but if we did nothing, we're endorsing the continuation of the status quo?
That's correct.
Anybody want to make is anybody dying to make a motion? I mean, what's the advantage in that? Supervisor Walensky.
In my case, 100% of my land is in the Williamson Act, so I would not be able to add anything to it. I would imagine then that if there is a motion to accept new applications, that would be an affirmative move we could make, and I would ask council whether that would even potentially be conflictive for at least my
There's no conflict
situation.
Either.
Well, that applies to everybody who owns.
If you're going to vote not to.
I'm asking.
I think that applies to everybody who potentially owns ag land in the county. Sure, that certainly has a broad application.
Okay. Well, as I see it, we can satisfy our we can make a statement as a board by doing nothing here. If we want to get on the headlines like the other county did, then somebody should make a statement either before or after we take a recess. I'm open to suggestion on this, but I want to emphasize that I think that we can easily do our job to preserve the program as it currently exists, taking on new applications, continuing the program without, we just say, thanks for coming, we're not making any change.
How much time do you need, Jim, to give them an answer?
If this does hinge on the question of whether the ag community constitutes a significant, what was the term of art here, significant portion of the community?
Significant segment, yes.
Segment. Then might it be beneficial to look up case law relating specifically to similar counties or similar situations in which that term came up and was adjudicated?
That's the case, and there are also other steps you can take to get more or less guaranteed answers. I'm not the arbiter of conflicts. I can tell you what I understand the rules to be, but there are other steps that you can take that will make it, give you a very clear, specific answer to these questions. And those aren't entirely within my control, but I would say if there's some contemplated action, then you should put it off for a few weeks anyway.
Well, why don't we see if there's a motion of anything?
Well, I have a motion.
Okay,
I feel we need to say something, even if it's just a minute order. I think we need to be clear for the record that we support implementing the Williamson Act as it is constituted in Calaveras County, under recognizing that there will not be subvention funds. And it's just a statement, like Russ said, of what our policy is. But just to, I kind of feel like we need to put it, we need to somehow codify it, the position of the board.
Well, just to make it simple, I think Steve and I'll just recuse ourselves on that motion, and the three of you can vote it, and then there's no issue. That's our position anyway, so what difference does it make?
I will second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Aye.
Two.
Well, recusal.
Yeah, recusal.
Yeah, 2 recusals.
Did you get that, Vote recorded. Okay, so the motion passes. We will be issuing, this was a minute order stating our continuing support for the Williamson Act, despite the absence of the large subvention, whatever it is. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you. I thank you personally very much for that, and the ag community also thanks you as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Okay, there's been a request here for a short recess. We'd like to reconvene at 10:30, please. We'll reconvene the meeting with agenda item number 6. This is a discussion and possible action regarding authorizing the board chair to sign a letter to support the compiling of a Calaveras County economic profile. As you recall in our discussion last week, I said that I would be bringing back a letter this morning, and you have it in front of you. It's just short and sweet. It's my understanding that Mr. Haley, as the chairman of this Calaveras County Profile Committee, can use this letter to demonstrate that the Board of Supervisors is showing at least their philosophical support, if not financial support, for the effort of collecting contributions and assistance in providing an economic profile that could be used, as the letter specifies, for enhancing the economic vitality of Calaveras County. Any comments?
Looks like a good letter to me. There's not a lot of discussion. I'd certainly move adoption.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to authorize me to sign this letter. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the motion passes, and I'll get that to you, Mr. Haley, on county letterhead ASAP.
And thanks for keeping up the effort.
I just want to say something. Tomorrow I'm meeting with the Big Trees Park Committee, because that's also part of the economic engine of this county, and we don't know if the park's going to close or not close, but I'd like to be able to present them with a copy of this tomorrow when I meet with them, if that's okay with you, just to let them know that it exists and so forth.
I'd be glad to talk to them to explain what the purpose of what we're doing.
Okay, I'll talk to them. I think it's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, Supervisor. I'll see if they can produce that on the county letterhead. All right, going on to the second part of 6 here, we have review of correspondence, reports of various matters of concern. Supervisor Callaway, do you want to start this morning?
As I mentioned to Dave Haley, I'm meeting with the Calaveras Big Trees Association tomorrow. We want to start working, hopefully, together on some kind of strategy or thinking about it in case we lose one of our park is closed, and even hopefully if it's not, that there's things that we can do to help the community realize that it is an integral part of our community in an economic way. Also, this coming weekend is Support Your State Parks. So the 29th and 30th, if you all would like to take a wonderful drive up to Big Trees and enjoy the state park jewel that's in right here. On Thursday, Steve and I both have Central Sierra Child Support meeting in Markleyville, and I'm going to be taking the Ebbets Pass Scenic Byway route, and then I have Juvenile Justice Commission meeting in San Andreas. And that's all for board appointments. Thank you.
Supervisor Toffanelli.
The only thing I have is on Thursday evening, I will be attending that community plan Valley Springs update. Other than that, nothing else to report.
Supervisor Walensky.
Emergency preparedness meeting in West Point on Wednesday. The JPA that Marita had mentioned on Thursday, and meeting with the CCWD and the community of Wilseyville to discuss the relationship between the two on Friday. Also, probably, I guess, Gary, we should make some brief report on the Calaveras-Mariposa Community Action Agency meeting this last week. We have been discussing the there's a little bit of new money that came in.
$114,000.
And there, yes, this will solve all of our problems.
This will solve all of our job problems in the county.
But when it comes to the pittance being devoted to anti-poverty programs in the area, it actually is meaningful dollars. And the question is how it would be spent. There are various theories, and we seem to find ourselves in a debate on two levels. Many institutions, when seeing additional money, will often think about building the institution. Gary and I both felt strongly that the money be used not just to build capacity of the Calaveras-Mariposa Community Action Agency, but specifically to go directly to services. So we, given that discussion and the question of where the staff for it is hired and domiciled, right now 100% of that is in Mariposa County. We wanted to bring back for some discussion, not today, but try to develop a board approach to our participation in the Calaveras-Mariposa Community Action Agency and develop a position to bring back, because the decisions on the original proposal were tabled for further discussion.
That's correct.
So I hope we might agendize this to have some formal discussion on the relationship we have to this agency and try to make sure that it's equitable and service-based.
Okay.
Is that fair?
That's a fair summation of what transpired on Thursday.
Okay, your request for agendizing this, did that get received by Mr. Lawton?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Triant.
A couple items. I did attend the RCRC meeting last Wednesday. They did confirm that the Prop 1A securitization is ongoing, that we're supposed to be made whole in total, and it's a joint powers authority. Quite frankly, I don't know why the state just doesn't borrow the money directly and just give us our money. It sounds like, and the state's basically the one on the hook. It's not going to be the county's credit that's on the hook. So that rather surprises me that the state is doing that, but it seems to sort of defeat the idea of taking the money in the first place. Basically, borrowing it, paying interest, and then paying it right back. But anyway, we had next is on the local gas tax, and Tom's here from Public Works. They did confirm, which I wasn't aware of, that the tax has been, the receipts to the counties have been suspended for the first 6 months of the year. So the money that we should be receiving for the first 6 months will come sometime after December 31st.
How much?
Well, I guess it's half of it. So we were $1.8 million, so I guess 900,000 has been suspended, I guess is the proper term, not borrowed, not taken permanently, just suspended. But they haven't picked a repayment date. So, Tom, you might want to come forward. So nobody knows when that money's going to get repaid. And speaking to Tom yesterday, because I wanted to go over the RCRC with him, either yesterday or Friday. It was Friday, I guess. He mentioned that they're thinking perhaps of taking the rest of it, that the state legislature was not happy with the line item by Schwarzenegger, and they're thinking one way of restoring some of the line item veto money would be to take the local share of the gas tax. So I guess that's still in play. And Tom, maybe you want to talk a little to that?
Pretty much what Supervisor Tryon said is the legislature is revisiting the taking of the gas tax, but they're not doing it as quite a public forum as they did last time.
HUTA.
The HUTA, correct. It's very problematic for us because if they're delaying the payments for 6 months, which is that's our snow plowing money. So if we perform the snow plowing in anticipation of getting the money repaid and borrow from other funds, and they end up taking it, then it puts...
So we'll put the snow back?
Yeah, I don't know. It puts us in a world of hurt. It's difficult being in this kind of limbo. We wish that they would make a decision and stick to it, one way or another.
I guess I would like to, maybe we need to come back just in a study session or a memo to the board. I'd like to see the bigger picture on this, that if we do not receive the funding for 6 months, 4 months, 6 months, what does that mean to the county? What is that? And let me just take snow removal. Where would the funds come to pay for snow removal? Out of what pocket will we be taking it? And then in 6 months, is it anticipated we'd get that back, plus we'd get the full share back in 6 months, or just half, and then at the end of the year, the other half? I mean, there seems to be several permutations of this.
A study session might be helpful. To my understanding, they have not made any reference to how they were going to pay back the remainder after that 6 months takes. So we would assume, big assumption, that it's going to be on the regular schedule when we get our payments.
So, Mr. Garcia, should we be at what point lobbying our legislator who voted to keep FUTA in the counties?
Working through CSAC, we're doing that now. We're lobbying through the counties to make sure that they don't, or to encourage them not to take the gas tax.
Well, Senator Cox is coming to Calaveras in the middle of September. So,
dropping a bug in his ear might be a good
well, kind of maybe more than that. But yeah, I'd kind of like to know more, just sort of the bigger picture as it's going to impact your department.
We anticipate we'd be borrowing money internally to cover the snow removal services if we were guaranteed the payback of the sales tax, of the gas tax funds.
Well, it begs the question.
What if we're not guaranteed?
If we don't get it, or they keep it, or they keep half of it, we're not going to not snow remove. So 2 negatives make a positive, so we are going to snow remove. So, I mean, we don't have to talk about it now, but I think it's something that it impacts. We all get more road calls than anything else, and I think we'd all be interested in the big picture.
Okay.
Isn't that right, colleagues?
I think yes. I think it was. This is
It's open mic Tuesday. That's right. Marina, go ahead and have it.
This is a very good example of what Harry Truman was talking about when he said that where you stand on a particular issue depends on where you sit. And, since Marita sits in the middle of the snow, she has strong opinions about it. All right, I think...
May I finish up then?
I don't know, Tom.
I wasn't done.
What else could news be?
But Bob may jump in on the study sessions, because I've requested one from both public health and planning and public works. And I think we need to have those in as timely a manner as possible, particularly the public health ones, because we're going to be getting into all the public health issues that we're hearing about. But anyway, proceeding then with RCRC, we had an individual in, I believe it was Bruce Gibson from the Legislative Analyst's Office, and he talked with us. And everybody seems to be in agreement, all of RCRC staff, the Legislative Analyst's Office representative, et cetera, that the state budget is in total disarray. Everybody anticipates that there will be another special session called by the governor on the budget. Nobody knows quite when. The governor called a special session on education, I think last Thursday or Wednesday when I was at RCRC, to try to see if we can make California more eligible for stimulus money in education from the federal government. But I was talking to Dana Jorgensen Friday, and he's saying Dave Cox thinks there will be a special session in October. The gentleman sitting next to at RCRC, and I can't remember his name, but he's the county supervisor from San Luis Obispo, and their representative is the minority leader, Republican minority leader in the Assembly. And he's saying that Millsack or something like that, and that gentleman is saying that the minority leader also anticipates another budget session. The legislative analyst, it was interesting, said that which is kind of the numbers that are being floated out there, that their office anticipates 2000, what are we now, 9 and 10, so 2010 and 11. Am I saying that right? That there's probably a built-in $15 billion deficit in the state budget for the coming fiscal year. He said that their attorneys had told the governor, or had not told the governor, but had counseled the governor that some of his line item vetoes and several things in this budget are in fact illegal and probably will be overturned by the courts. It just looks like, the revenues are coming in less than anticipated. There'll probably be several things that will get overturned. He also mentioned the cash flow needs for the state are about $1.8 billion immediately, and then 10 to 12 billion additional borrowing just to meet the cash flow needs for the state of California. So everybody's, the sense that most people were is that there's probably budget negotiations going on continually at this point. They'll probably try to reach some sort of basic understandings before he calls the special sessions, just so it doesn't turn into a total into chaos, but that everybody seems to be in agreement that the current budget is, for lack of a better term, a considerable amount of smoke and mirrors in it, and that even if you assume this budget stands as presented, there's an estimate of a $15 billion deficit for the coming fiscal year, and everybody agrees that this budget won't stand as presented. So there's just a lot of frustration. You can see the frustration in the RCRC people, and you can see it a little bit in the legislative analyst person also. I mean, everybody's under a tremendous amount of pressure, and there just isn't enough money to go around. Lastly, on the RC agenda, the Imperial County representative to RCRC is also the representative for CSAC. Help me with his name.
Gary Wyatt.
No, not Terry Wyatt. From Imperial.
Gary's from Imperial.
Oh, yeah, Gary.
He's the president of CSAC this year. Yeah.
It's Wyatt.
Wyatt.
Wyatt, okay, yeah, he said White. Okay, yeah, Gary was there. And he said, and you can jump in on this one, first of all, somebody had mentioned in the RCRC group that CSAC had taken a position of support in increasing the gas tax by 5% so that the government, or so the state could take the 5% and there'd be no loss to counties. And then Gary jumped in and said, oh no, that was actively discussed, but CSAC did not take a position on either for or against, just took no position at all. They did not take a position in favor of increasing the gas tax by 5 cents. There was strong a sentiment by the RCRC folks not to increase the gas tax by 5 cents. So, but I think there's getting to be more and more of a sense that the local share of the gas tax is getting, as Tom mentioned, is certainly sort of on the front burner for additional money, if in fact additional money is needed to be generated in this fiscal year. So anyway, that completes my RCRC comment. I have one other comment. I see we're getting, and Steve's on the board of the Sierra Nevada Conservancy for a lot of grants and et cetera. And I guess I'd turn to the CAO and say, are we having anybody sort of follow all this, and are we eligible for these grants? And if so, are we applying and doing some follow-up? Because if there's a bunch of, available money, whether it be stimulus money or road money or just Sierra Nevada Conservancy money, which is a different, goes sort of for different sources, seems to me we should have somebody that's reviewing all this and submitting applications if in fact we're eligible.
I can tell you, part of this is my responsibility, and I am working with a number of different applicants, including the Upper McCalmany Watershed Authority, which has put things in for watershed stewardship. We have various projects going, including Calaveras Amador Consensus Project. The RCMD has put in grant applications. We have at least 8 from this immediate county in. However, because the bonds have been, revenue has been frozen to the Sierra Nevada Conservancy, nothing has been distributed this year, and it's not anticipated to even begin renewing the application reviews until at least September, mid to late September. We are meeting jointly with our RCRC up in Tahoe, I think, in September.
The annual meeting?
Yes, the annual meeting. So that'll be done, at least one day will be an overlap and joint day between the two, and there will be a lot more information at that time as to what and when. But there's lots of local work. I just think we need to make sure that if we're eligible for some money, that we get an application. We have got applications in for more than 4 times the money we're eligible for. So I think we've done a pretty good job of getting our stuff in.
Supervisor Collins, you said you had a question.
Yeah, 2 things. Tom, this in CSAC, I don't know if you discussed at RCRC, but the feeling now is not to support a constitutional convention because it just is going to open up such a hornet's nest on issues we just don't want to go there long term, and we're going to work on the initiatives to, again, priority keeping local revenues. Is RCRC there?
Yes, I think everybody's worried about a constitutional convention because nobody knows where it would go. And, the sense, and I asked that question. I attended, I think it was Friday evening, help me, Russ, was it Thursday or Friday? One of them, the California Taxpayers Association.
Oh, it was Friday.
Friday, yeah, it was Friday. And they had a gentleman from Jarvis County. Speaking, and I asked him about the constitutional convention because the sense is that, the first thing, you look at the state and it's controlled by Democrats, and so you say, well, where's the constitutional convention going to go? It's going to follow a Democratic agenda, the first thing that'll probably go is the two-thirds requirement to pass a budget. The next thing that'll go is the two-thirds requirement to pass taxes, because it's all going to, the sense is it would basically be geared towards making it much easier to generate additional revenues for the government. So I think, RCRC is still a fairly conservative group. Certainly, I think Jarvis Gann is, I don't want to say conservative, but is not wanting to see lots more money go from the private sector to the government sector. So the sense I have, and he basically, the Jarvis Gann guy concurred. He said, yeah, we're very concerned about that, and they're watching it very closely. I think RCRC is watching it closely. I'm sure CSAC is, because, depending on how it came down, would have just a huge influence on lots of things in the state, and not knowing who the players would be at the table and how it would come down, because they're very uncomfortable. And for a new California or something, they said it's not really coming out of a political party at this point.
No, it's not.
It's coming out of sort of a good government group, I think, in the Bay Area,
Yeah, in fact, business.
Something for California or something like
yes.
that.
California Forward.
Yeah, California Forward, thank you, is the group that's pushing it at this point, and nobody, I think Democrats are, I'm told, are also very leery of it. Just because nobody kind of knows where it would go, and once you open up a constitutional convention, it can go anywhere. So nobody's sort of really saying we're strongly opposed. Everybody's just saying we're closely monitoring what's happening.
I have also a question for Mr. Lawton. When is the final budget coming to us?
That was things to discuss.
Okay. And our email that I sent you this weekend? Now, late. Well, I didn't know if there was something going to happen in closed session.
We can take that up at closed session. We can discuss that in closed session as well.
Okay.
I don't. I'd rather get to the closed session things when we get to closed session. So.
I mean, I don't know what's going to be discussed. I don't want to make a big deal out of it. I just want to express my thoughts. So I guess I'm looking to your astute opinion. Yes, now, or wait?
You would not in any way disadvantage us, I think, if you wanted to raise
okay,
the proposal.
All right. I'm going to just do it because everybody's wondering what in the heck she's talking about. I feel strongly that public safety has come to us, and the components of the public safety, DA, probation, and have made a commitment to take a cut or to give something up to the county. And barring that we do not have an agreement with SEIU, which is usually what we do for them happens to everybody else. I don't know where it is, but I think we need to do something now. Without waiting. I think we need to do it for electeds. I understand it's voluntary, but we can put that out. And for department heads, I'm open on the non-represented group, Madeline's and Carol's and people and HR and so forth. But I think for the department heads and the elected officials, we need to do something now. And it needs to be done when we move as part of when we go to the final budget, then the admin office can take that into consideration and say, based on all the electeds and all the department heads participating at the same rate that the public safety contingent is at the minimum, and if it's for SEI becomes more, then we would do more. We need to do that now. I'm just not comfortable waiting, and I emailed Bob about it, and he said it makes a good topic for the board, and so that's it. We don't have to. I'd like to put it out there and give Bob direction to proceed, to at least start the process, because it takes a while, just to the mechanics, the housekeeping of it. Thank you.
Supervisor Walensky.
In my report, I neglected to talk about something that I did want to bring up to the board, and that has to do with the PG&E Stewardship Council work that's going on to divest 3,000 acres of PG&E land. They're giving it away. Approximately 340-some acres are within Calaveras County, and we have put in an interest on it, not committed to taking it or leaving it, but we're part of the process at this point. I attended a meeting last week that described the process in great detail, gave us some a 3-week deadline to add some detail as to what where our interests lay. In particular, since the entire part of the PG&E lands that are under consideration are in District 2. There's a little piece of it that is in Blue Lakes up your way.
We'll take it.
Yes, well, I thought you might have an interest as well. At any rate, there is going to be some small amount of staff work to do this next step, but I wanted in particular to note that we have had what I consider to be the best swimming hole in all of Calaveras County down on Ponderosa Way, just north of Highway 26. The road, we stopped grading it. The county used to grade it once a year, right after the rains, because nobody put culverts in, so the road washes out every year. PG&E has some responsibility for reaching agreements with who they're giving the stuff away to as to what their responsibility for what condition it would be left in. And there are several things that have happened since we stopped grading the road. One is that it's become a place where people do things they're not supposed to do, including the fact that there's no bathroom down there means that they're soiling the river quite considerably, or the area around it. On the North Fork, PG&E and others put together a package that put in a parking spot, a good way off of Highway 26, and also put in a bathroom and stairs that can be safely get people down, families down to the North Fork swimming hole. We're hoping something similar might be arranged for people in our area. That was once by far the most popular swimming area in the northern part of District 2. Many townspeople appreciated the river there for generations. We've let it go, much to our own detriment. The bridge has been burned. There are a lot of things that would need to be restored to make it right. But this is an opportunity for us to get that done and to have some funds and some arrangements to accomplish that jointly with BLM, PG&E, and maybe in partnership with Amador County, which owns the opposite side of the river right to the center at the same site. So it's my hope we'll focus on that in Blue Lakes as our primary interest in this, and be able to let that be known in this next 2.5 weeks. There's a deadline for honing our proposal, and that's really what we need to do. I've got the maps, the instructions. I know that our planning director is George White, is the person who's been designated by the county to deal with this, but I'll also turn this packet over to the CAO to be able to review and get up to date on.
Okay, Mr. Jones, the gentleman back there, is he the outside counsel that you mentioned to me before? Yes. Okay, we have a person who is waiting to assist us on one of our closed session items, so I'll just make my comments very brief this morning. Well,
Referring to the gentleman with the whimsical necktie?
That's the one. That's the one I was referring to.
Yeah, nice tie.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to remind the CAO and the board members that we At September of last year, we had a couple of sessions that were loud and noisy, and the discussion was a noise ordinance, a nuisance noise ordinance that needs to come back at some time. A year is long enough to have something language like that. We also need to resurrect our efforts, and I think that there have been some discussions last week. Talking with Jeff White, he said that the discussion on the legal access issue was that you guys had a brief discussion about it, and I guess Janice also needed to weigh in on it, and she was away. I really... I don't know how many of the other board members have been approached by the participants that we appointed to that committee. They worked for 9 months on it, and it just has fallen off the edge of the world. And they're not overjoyed that we put them through that, and we didn't come to any resolution. So anyway, that needs to come back at post haste.
While we're talking about ancient drafts and early efforts, I'd like to add that the Oak ordinance that we had a draft for 2.5 years ago is yet to go before the board, and we are missing, in this time where we need dollars for the county, the dollars that are mitigation monies that for mitigations occurring here in Calaveras County are spent in other counties because we lack this enactment. So maybe it would be a good time, since we're talking about trying to be thrifty and smart with our dollars, not to be making charitable contributions to neighboring counties.
Well, I have to say, in defense of planning, that on projects they have made mitigation,
absolutely.
and we have set aside requirements and funding that isn't going to other counties. My understanding is going to an Oak account within this county. So, I mean, George can correct me, because...
Well, it would be nice to start spending some of that locally.
It'd be nice to have an Oak ordinance.
We already have what looks like a pretty good draft. I don't understand why, if there's a hang-up...
It's sitting with my dark sky ordinance.
In the ash bin of history, or what?
Bring them both
talking about here?
The canopy of the tree is in the sky.
Okay. Also, Mr. Garcia, I don't think that you were here this morning when we had public comments about some allegations of...
Oh, he was.
You were over there? Okay. Just if you have your pencil handy there, Mr. Martin's telephone number is 786-0577. He seemed to be very eager to look over your shoulder to look at policies on the scrap metal retrieval and that kind of stuff. All right, Mr. Lott. Yes.
One item I failed to mention, and that is RCRC sent a letter out. I don't know if it went to everybody, but it went to myself, and I know the CAO, on some forestry and fire prevention strategies. Did it go to everybody?
Yes.
Okay, so if you guys just want to make sure you have...
The survey?
Yes, just a survey of what we'd like to be advocates for or against, for that matter. Okay, as long as everybody received it, that's fine.
Okay. And before
I was surveyed.
You were surveyed?
You were surveyed? Okay. I just want to make a quick comment on an August 10th letter from the California Fish and Game Commission. This is talking about proposed emergency regulatory action related to the incidental take of the California tiger salamander. I mean, I kind of blanched when I first started looking through this thing, but it looks like that there's some realistic wording in this thing that recognizes that there's got to be some overriding considerations when you're talking about these various species. So, have you read this? You haven't seen it? I'd be curious to hear your comments about it, to see if your interpretation is the same as mine, that there's a significantly, maybe a right-leaning tone in this. I don't know, maybe they went out and drafted a Republican or something to write it, so.
I thought it was nonpartisan.
Well, I don't know, but it seemed like it might have been written by that guy that was talking for the Taxpayers Association. So. All right, with that, Mr. Lawton, do you have lots of stuff to tell us?
Well, just a few things, Mr. Chairman. Number one, in response to Supervisor Callaway's inquiry, we are scheduling final budget for the September 22nd board meeting. Make a note of that. We've advised department heads already of the date, and Assistant County Administrator Ryan will be working with them and their requests to make whatever technical adjustments are necessary. I would add, kind of apropos of the discussion that you were having earlier, the final budget, I think, has now become a pretty legal fiction in local government in California. There is no such thing as a final budget anymore. The state no longer adopts a budget and goes away and leaves us to our own devices. They are constantly changing. And so I think we'll do this as an exercise, but safe in the knowledge that there's going to be further work as we go through the year. The good thing is, I think, here in Calaveras, we have internalized that constant budgeting with the mid-year and third quarter reports to the board. As we prepare for those, your staff goes to departments, seeks the revenue projections, expenditure projections. We basically make, as we go along at mid-year and third quarter, the adjustments necessary for us to conclude the year in a balanced state. So we won't have any major pulling and hauling, I think, at any one point in the year, but we're going to do this continuously as we've done in the past. And without telling tales out of school, that practice, so we've talked with the auditor controller, and the practice of making those adjustments during the year on a regular basis, looking forward to year end, has greatly facilitated our closure of the books for 2008-2009. The auditor controller found that to be an extremely helpful process this year as opposed to some of the years past. So we'll continue doing that, again, in the knowledge that I think we are moving for the time being from truly a budget-based public finance system to a series of appropriations that we go back to again and again. September 22nd, mark your calendars, it's a red letter day. Supervisor Callaway also mentioned the notion of salary, I don't want to say salary concessions, but let's say employee participation in paying for the cost of some of the benefits that we receive would be one way of approaching it, or voluntary time off. I've been approached by elected and appointed officials within the public safety suite of departments, indicating an eagerness to basically get with this program, and they are in a position, as are any of the board members, to go to the auditor controller's office and make those necessary arrangements. But I think there'll be some kind of policy that comes out of the closed session today that we will discuss in greater detail next week. But it's not just the board that wants to do this. It is other elected officials. It is senior appointed officials. We're looking at if you'll recall, the reductions agreed to by the public safety unions ranged from approximately, I think, 5.6% to 7% along that scale. I expect that the folks who talked to me about this yesterday are probably going to go to the 7% participation. And we will see how that goes after closed session today. A couple of housekeeping things I wanted to go through, and if anybody has any questions, please stop me as we go along. I've had requests for 5 study sessions, and I want to make sure that I get the assent of the board, or at least you know that they're coming. One would be public health, and that's going to be, we've got the flu coming up. The Supervisor Tryon had noted that's having a big impact on other parts of the country and the state. I know that we've gotten out in front of this early, and I'm sure that we'll be able to update the board on where we are now. We have 2 new department heads who joined us in Public Works and in Planning, who both happen to be in the room today. They've been on the job for a couple of months now, and it might not be a bad time for each of them to do a study session on where their departments are, where they're headed in the short term, what they have found in the time they've been here. We need to discuss certainly the plans for life after Huda and where the general plan is going, and this would be a good opportunity.
Don't scare them off, Bob. Don't scare them off.
We've got them. They're already working here. So give them a chance to come and respond, raise their issues, and respond to questions. Solid waste, and then finally the fifth one would be the county, the adult detention facility in that project, and where we're going and what the decision points are going to be. So those are 5 study sessions that we'll be scheduling for the board in the extremely near future. And if there are dates as we go into September, October, that are going to be less convenient for some people than others, it would be helpful. I'll try and arrange that for your convenience.
Did you also hear from the folks who were doing a tour of counties, making board presentations? Gave you the number a while ago.
I haven't spoken with them, so we'll have to get that.
Because we had committed, we talked to, as a board, we had asked for a study session on that as well.
Okay.
And what was that?
Elaborate on that, Steve. What do you
There had been, and I'm a little foggy actually on the details of it, but there was a group that was talking about, came out of the Sierra Fund, and they were touring the different counties, giving a presentation on, I guess, some elements of treatment of waste. And some
solid waste or
hazardous waste sites,
waste.
like
It was
treatment of hazardous.
Well, it was how to access funds for cleanups and dealing with toxic waste. It was a chance to get money.
We've gotten a lot of that money
They had
in the
some
past.
angles that seemed to be different than what we were accessing. Just thought it'd be good to expose ourselves to it.
So that's item F.
Okay, when you listed those 5, Mr. Lawton, you talked about planning and public works being, those are on 2 different
Yeah, I mean, they may not need to be on 2 different days, but they are separate and distinct.
Okay, but public works / solid waste,
I
would that
think
be
there
on-
may be enough on public works to hold solid waste separately and make that one of it, so.
All right. Well, the discussion on the jail should go real fast.
Oh, yeah, that'll be
I think you should bring the
He's
jail
advocating for
issues
one.
first, Bob. I mean, we need to resolve
Yeah,
that.
that's one that we need to do.
Okay, so we will order it with the jail at the top of the list. And then finally, there was some discussion here I wanted to pick up on the ordinances, and I guess there's some that have been hanging fire, and doing them is going to require some staff commitment, so I want to get some sense of direction on. We've got 4 of them. I heard: oak, dark skies, noise, and legal access. If those are issues that the board wants staff to formulate or finish up the drafts and work on the ordinances, bring them to the board for board discussion and consideration, then we await your direction on that.
I think the noise part is an element in the general plan, so I think that's coming with the general plan, is it not, George?
Supposed to come before
It's supposed to become.
There will be a noise component to the general plan, certainly. It was my understanding that there was some effort made for some interim regulations related to
Is that what
noise.
we're talking about?
That's correct. We had said,
a noise
actually,
ordinance.
to that raucous meeting that we had, that we'd be back.
Interim ordinance between now and acceptance.
Can I weigh in on that? Because there's nothing new under the sun, and there's nothing new in the field of noise ordinances. We've accumulated draft or real ordinances from a variety of other jurisdictions. The problem is which size fits Calaveras County. That's to a large extent enforceability issues, plus what the board wants to do. So I'm not sure that we're in a position to bring you an ordinance. I think we need a lot of preliminary decisions. We need some input from the sheriff's office as to enforceable, and we need to know what the board wants before we can go any further on it. But so there's a lot of raw material available, but I think we need to have a discussion with the sheriff's office, probably with planning and
Study session number 6.
okay.
Well, I mean, I think to a large degree, if some of those discussions can take place at the staff level in order to prepare an item that all the other entities agree on. But if it's a matter of getting specific direction from the board on what they want the noise ordinance to accomplish, well then, yeah, then make it.
Well, I think it should come as a study session before it comes for board action, not just put it on the agenda and get input into it.
Well, the issue keeps coming up is the deputies keep saying there's no noise ordinance in the county. They do respond to noise complaints, they talk to people, but they don't have a citation authority. And so do we want to somehow give them citation authority? So I agree with Bob, let them discuss it at the staff level so we can understand what are the issues in the field versus what is it we want to have happen as policy.
I mean, from the board's point of view, would you like staff to return with a noise ordinance, and I suppose it restates the obvious, that allows people the quiet enjoyment of their premises? That is the goal that we're trying to reach here with the noise ordinance. It's not to punish people. It's an affirmative measure. It says, I've got a house. I like to be able to enjoy my house and not be disturbed by the activities of my neighbors. Their right to make noise ends where my right to be torqued off begins.
Well,
easy to say, not so easy to do.
Well, but other jurisdictions have done it, as you've noted, and I think we'll study it some more. We'll have a study session.
There has to be something based on recurrence and things like that. I mean, people are going to weed eat, they're going to mow their lawn, they're going to do things that make noise. It has to be something that, what gets triggered we need to be very clear on what we're triggering.
Okay, well, just as a reminder, the thing that precipitated all the loud discussion, for the want of a better word, here was that people came and they insisted on having a change or not a change, but to make sure that the county would begin to enforce its ruling on rental of houses on a short-term basis, because that seemed to be the biggest discussions around Lake Tulloch. Okay, to expand on that. The resort at Lake Tulloch, I mean, it's seeing a resurgence of economic activity down there, which is a good thing. The bad thing, it's being reported to me, is that they've got a big bandstand that they are playing loud music throughout the day and also into the evening. The wrinkle in it is that you are given an opportunity, if you've got a boat with these big ghetto blaster type of speakers on them, that you can tune your FM radio to the same station that's broadcasting from the bandstand. So you can be anywhere on the lake, and you have 50 boats out there that are playing the same music that's being played at the bandstand, and it's a sight to behold. So.
Or sound to be heard.
Sound to be heard.
Sound to be heard.
So anyway, I absolutely will not continue to appear to be insensitive to the plaintiff calls that we heard last year in September. So, because my telephone is getting louder, and I think that there should be an ordinance against that. So. Okay.
We'll schedule a study session on that, and then I have, again, Oak, Dark Skies, and Legal Access are three others that came up here. They are perennial favorites, and it might be nice, staff would be happy to, speaking for staff, if the board wants to take these up, then it's go time.
I think that on a couple of them, well, I'm not going to be a judge and jury on it, but they're overdue. I mean, we have asked people to do long and hard work on these things, and it just it imploded and it's going nowhere, and we owe a resolution.
So if there's direction from the board, then we will have staff come back to you with these other items.
Well, in this particular set of cases, this board committed itself to outcomes long ago, and it is true that the commitments preceded the arrival of any of the administrative personnel involved, so it's not any slap at anybody in the room.
And I did not intend as such.
Including, no, well, I'm saying including the CAO. This actually predated your arrival in some cases. So it's just our hope that we can, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be all that good. We'd
Just
like
good enough
to,
for government work.
No, we can actually work on this stuff ourselves. Many of these questions that have hung it up are policy questions, and we should be, it's our job to review the policy differences and get on with business. So if there's a way to do that in an expeditious fashion, I think we had drafts in some of these cases as much as 2.5 years, almost 3 years ago. Four, yes, you're right, 4 in one case. So, people talk about the pace of government and the out of planning. We're seeing all kinds of wonderful things coughed up from 5 years ago and 4 years ago and 3 years ago. We're just encouraging this to be part of that. Great job catching up, by the way, in these projects.
I don't know how helpful it would be to you, but I would like to be able to tell somebody who's calling and saying, what's going on with that? I'd like to say, well, by the end of this year, we'll get that done, or something, September, October, November. I don't know.
Why don't you get them scheduled, Bob, and then send out the schedule to the board? Let us know what.
And so what I'm saying, though, is that if there are, at this point between now and the end of the year, that hey, I've got a vacation plan, or I'm going to be out of town, or I have this obligation, or we have this meeting, we're going to have CSAC. We've got enough. I got holes in the schedule already between now and December with Fifth Tuesdays and things like that. So we're going to be bringing a lot of work to the board, and if there are days when you would prefer to have a lighter agenda, please let me know. And I will yield the balance of my time to the learned and esteemed County Council.
Learned. Did somebody dispute that?
I think we should pull the board on that.
I have nothing to report, but I see that Mr. Ash has shown up, so I'll just have to say, Si said all kinds of good things about you this morning. That's all I have.
Thank the board for the change to be in service for another year. This will be 15 years we've done this job.
Good for you.
Thank you. Thank you for your willingness to continue. All right, Madeline, we're waiting for your report.
Oh, come on, Madeline. Apples? No?
Okay. This concludes the public portion of this meeting. We'll be going into